In the modern telling, Rumpelstiltskin feels like a puzzle. A strange little man, a clever queen, a secret name spoken just in time. It ends with relief. The monster vanishes, the child is saved, language triumphs over darkness. But this is not the story that lasted. The original Rumpelstiltskin was not about cleverness. It was not about riddles or wordplay. And it was never meant to reassure. It was a story about promises made under pressure, about bargains struck when there is no alternative, and about the cost that follows, even when you have escaped. In its earliest versions, the story does not feel playful. It feels transactional, cold, almost bureaucratic. A girl is trapped, a demand is made, a price is agreed upon. Magic does not rescue her. It only postpones the payment. This fairy tale was never meant to be entertaining. It was meant to warn. This story was never meant to be kind. Rumpelstiltskin was recorded in the early 19th century by the Brothers Grimm, but like most fairy tales, it existed long before print. Its roots lie in medieval German-speaking regions shaped by feudal obligation, debt, and inherited labour. This was a world where social mobility was nearly impossible. Peasants lived at the mercy of lords. Words such as vows, oaths, and contracts carried real, binding power. The story opens with a lie. A miller boasts that his daughter can spin straw into gold. This is not a magical claim, it is a social one. He inflates her value to gain favour with authority, and authority believes him not because it is plausible, but because power demands results. The king does not question the claim, he tests it. This detail matters. In feudal systems, impossible demands were not errors, they were tools. They revealed who would break and who would bargain. The core fear in Rumpelstiltskin is not the creature himself. It is obligation without escape. The girl is locked in a room with straw and given a command she cannot fulfill. Failure means death. There is no negotiation, no appeal, no mercy. This reflects a historical reality. For centuries, people were bound by promises they did not choose, taxes they could not pay, labour they could not refuse, marriages they could not escape. The story confronts children with a terrifying truth. Sometimes survival depends on accepting help that will cost you later. The fear is not of being tricked, it is of having no clean options. The symbolism in Rumpelstiltskin is precise and unsentimental. Straw represents worthlessness, agricultural waste, the remains after value has been extracted. Gold represents power, legitimacy, and survival within the system. The act of spinning is labour, female, repetitive, invisible labour. The girl does not create gold through skill. She is not rewarded for effort. She is trapped by expectation. Rumpelstiltskin appears not as a demon, but as a contractor. He does not force the bargain, he offers terms, jewellery first, then more, then the child. Each exchange escalates. This mirrors real-world debt. Initial help feels manageable, later payments become existential. The creature's name is not mystical, it is personal. To name someone is to recognise them as a legal entity, an individual with claims and history. Names grant power because they acknowledge obligation. What behaviour does this story enforce? It does not teach children to avoid strangers. It does not teach them to value cleverness. It teaches caution around promises, specifically promises made when desperate. The story warns that help is never free, especially when offered quietly, privately, without witnesses. It prepares children to understand systems of extraction, how labour, bodies, and futures can be claimed through agreement rather than violence. The girl is not punished for accepting help. She is punished for needing it. That distinction is crucial. The fairy tale does not condemn Rumpelstiltskin. It exposes the structure that allows him to exist. Modern versions soften this dramatically. Rumpelstiltskin becomes comical, childlike, a creature defined by tantrums and wordplay. The queen wins through cleverness. Language defeats exploitation. The system collapses because the villain's name is revealed. But in earlier tellings, his defeat is not triumphant. Sometimes he flees. Sometimes he tears himself apart. Sometimes the ending is abrupt and unresolved. There is no celebration, because the story was not about victory, it was about survival within unfair systems, and the rare, fragile chance of escape. As societies moved toward contract law, literacy, and centralized authority, the idea that naming could undo obligation became comforting, but it was never the point. Rumpelstiltskin endured because it captured a universal human experience, the moment when survival forces a compromise. It teaches that power does not always arrive violently. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it offers help, and sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is agree. The story does not promise justice, it offers awareness. It tells children and adults that bargains made in fear reshape lives long after the fear is gone. That desperation creates debts that memory alone cannot erase. And that escape, when it comes, is quiet, incomplete, and never guaranteed. This is why the story remains unsettling, because we recognize it in loans, in contracts, in obligations, inherited but never chosen. The fairy tale does not ask us to defeat Rumpelstiltskin. It asks us to understand why he appears. And this is why the ending never feels complete. Because survival does not erase the memory of the bargain. It only delays the reckoning. The queen keeps her child, but not her innocence. She learns the name, but not how close she came to losing everything. The story does not end with safety, it ends with relief. And relief is not the same as peace. Children were meant to understand this difference. They were meant to feel it linger, because one day they too would face choices without clean outcomes. Promises made in fear, help that arrives with conditions, power that smiles while it calculates. Rumpelstiltskin disappears, but the system that summoned him does not. Fade to black. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. We want to hit 5,000 subscribers this week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.